He showed up with a homemade casserole just to help his brother after surgery. But what started as an act of kindness spiraled into betrayal, accusations, and a silent family takedown. What happened next turned everything upside down. Let me tell you something right off the bat. When you hit 67, you're not expecting to become the villain in someone else's soap opera. You think you've earned at least a little peace, a little respect, maybe even a quiet cup of coffee on the porch without being accused of masterminding a hostile takeover of your own damn family. But no, life had different plans. It all started with a casserole. That's right, a hot, bubbly chicken and broccoli casserole covered in crunchy breadcrumbs, the kind my mom used to make when someone in the family was sick, sad, or dying. Comfort food. A small gesture. A kind one. My younger brother Ray had just gotten out of the hospital. Hip surgery. They replaced it, finally, after months of him groaning like an old barn door every time he sat down. His wife, Joanna, sweet, sharp Joanna, had decided that was the perfect time to vanish for a little break. A little break. From her recovering husband. Classy. I hadn't seen Ray in months. We used to be close, back when beer was cheap and backs didn't crack like glow sticks every time we stood up. So, I did what any decent older brother would do. I drove 2 hours with that damn casserole on my lap, hot as hell, praying I didn't hit a bump and turn my thighs into chicken-flavored third-degree burns. When I pulled up to his house, the lawn looked like it had been through a war. Weeds waist-high, mail stuffed in the box like a hoarder's dream, the American flag hanging half unraveled, like even it had given up. I knocked. Nothing. Knocked again. Still nothing. Now, here's the thing. Ray once gave me a spare key. Back in 2010. When his dog ran off, and I had to come feed the damn thing while he and Joanna were in Bermuda. I never gave it back. Never thought I'd need it. But standing there, holding a rapidly cooling casserole and hearing absolutely nothing behind that door, I thought, screw it. I let myself in. Ray was in the recliner, covered in a blanket, watching one of those shows where people yell about paternity tests. His face lit up when he saw me. "Henry?" he said. "You came?" "Of course I came," I said. "You think I'd let you rot in here alone with reality TV and frozen dinners?" He laughed. Real laughter. The kind you don't fake when you're on painkillers and full of metal joints. I set the casserole down, took a seat, and just sat with him. No agenda, no lecture, no judgment. For the next 2 days, I stayed, cleaned the kitchen, took out trash that smelled like something died in it, twice, cut the damn lawn, changed his bed sheets. I even sat and listened to his rants about the government, which was basically like being waterboarded in Fox News. And he was grateful. I swear to you, the man was grateful. Until Joanna came back. She stormed into the driveway like a damn SWAT team, slammed the car door like it owed her money, walked into that house with her lips pursed so tight I thought her face might implode. She looked around like someone had broken in, which, technically, I guess I had. "Oh," she said, "you're still here." I smiled. "Good to see you too, Joanna. I just came to help." "To help?" she repeated, like I'd said I came to steal her jewelry. Ray shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Joanna didn't even look at him. Her eyes locked on me like I was some kind of fungus growing in her guest room. "You know, Henry," she said, "you always think you're doing something noble, but you never stop to ask if people want your help." "I didn't think Ray would want to crawl across the house to make himself soup," I replied. That didn't go over well. The next 20 minutes were a parade of passive-aggressive comments. I was overstepping. I was making things harder. I was acting like it's your house. All this after I'd scrubbed her toilet. With my bare hands? Well, not bare. Thank God for gloves. But still, my back hadn't stopped screaming since I weeded her garden. Ray? Silent. Like a lump. A very guilty lump. And then she dropped the hammer. You didn't tell him? She snapped at Ray. Ray looked like a deer on trial. Tell me what? I asked. That we don't need your help, she said. We're not your charity case. I looked at Ray. He looked away. Coward. That night, I packed up and left. No fight. No drama. I left half a casserole in the fridge and a note that just said, "Take care of each other." I thought that was the end of it. Spoiler, it wasn't. 2 days later, I got a call from my niece, Sarah. "Uncle Henry?" she said. "Did you really pressure Dad into signing something?" "Excuse me?" "He said you brought papers. Legal stuff." "Legal stuff?" I laughed. "The only thing I brought was food, a lawnmower, and my aching spine. He told Mom you were trying to take control of the house." That's when I realized this wasn't just Joanna being prickly. This was a narrative, a carefully crafted one, a campaign. My family was trying to turn me into a villain in a story where I was the only person who showed up. Let me be clear, I hadn't asked for anything. Not money, not recognition, just wanted to be useful. But apparently, kindness has an expiration date, and mine had passed. That night, I sat in my kitchen, staring at the phone. I could feel the bitterness rising in my throat, like acid reflux made of betrayal. You spend your whole life doing the right thing, and then one day, people decide to twist that into something ugly. Suddenly, you're not a brother. You're a manipulator. Not a helper. A threat. I'd love to tell you that I shook it off. That I said, well, family's complicated, and went back to my crossword puzzles. But no, that's not what happened, because something inside me cracked. Not broke, but cracked. And cracks let the light in, or the fire. That was only the beginning. What happened next changed everything. You won't want to miss how this unfolds. You know that feeling when someone hugs you with one arm and stabs you with the other? That was my family now. I thought it'd blow over. Maybe they'd cool off, realize they'd overreacted, and we'd all laugh about it over lukewarm coffee and dry pie at Thanksgiving. But no, this wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a hit job. It started small, subtle. The way poison starts with a little stomachache. Ray stopped returning my calls. Voicemails went from cheerful to tense to nothing at all. Sarah unfriended me on Facebook, which, yes, I still use because I'm over 50 and I like knowing when my old co-workers post blurry pictures of their dogs. Then came the real gut punch. I went to our family group chat to post a photo of my new raised garden bed. Exciting stuff, I know. And I noticed something weird. The group was gone. Not just a glitch. Gone. As in, I had been removed. That was when I knew I'd gone from Uncle Henry to persona non grata faster than a cold beer disappears at a family BBQ. Now, I'm not the kind of guy who picks fights. I served my time as the family referee for years, settling disputes about borrowed tools, unpaid debts. Who ruined Christmas that one year? Spoiler, it was Ray. I didn't want drama. But this was war. So I did the reasonable thing. I showed up. Yeah. I got in my car, drove out to Ray's house, and knocked. No answer. Again. Still nothing. I knocked harder, enough to rattle the door. Finally, I heard movement. Ray opened the door a crack. Just a crack. Like I was a vacuum salesman or a stray raccoon. "Hey," I said. "What do you want?" he replied. I blinked. To talk. Preferably to the brother I used to know. Not the cardboard cutout version who's too scared to pick up the phone. He didn't laugh. His eyes darted around like someone might see us. Joanna appeared behind him like a shadow. "Ray, close the door," she snapped. "I'm not a threat," I said, stepping forward. "I'm your brother." "No," she said coldly. "You're a manipulator who came into our home under false pretenses." "False pretenses? I brought a casserole, not a fucking legal team." I caught myself. Almost said the wrong thing. Not allowed on YouTube. But the rage was real. "You made him feel pressured," she continued. "You undermined our privacy. You tried to insert yourself into our affairs." "Our affairs?" "Ray's the one who called me last month saying he was afraid to go up the stairs alone." "What affairs am I ruining?" "Your neglect?" Her face flushed. Ray's eyes dropped. I knew I'd crossed a line, but it was a line that needed crossing. Joanna turned to Ray. "Are you going to let him talk to me like that?" And in that moment, my brother, my own flesh and blood, did something that shattered me. He said, "Maybe you should go, Henry." Go. Just one word, but it hit like a freight train. I didn't argue. I didn't plead. I turned around and walked off that porch like it was a crime scene. Because, in a way, it was. That night, I got the email. Not a call. Not a text. An email. From Sarah. Subject line: "We need to establish boundaries." I opened it, hoping for some kind of peace offering. Nope. It was a neatly written, cold-as-ice message that basically said, "Please don't visit anymore. Dad needs calm. Your presence has become disruptive." Disruptive. You ever try doing something decent and then get treated like a ticking time bomb? I couldn't sleep that night. Tossed and turned like my bed was full of nails. My thoughts spun. Was I crazy? Had I done something wrong? Maybe I overstepped. Maybe I should have asked before using the old key. Maybe I should have called more before showing up. But then I remembered I was the only one who did show up. And something else was nagging at me. That line, Joanna said, "You tried to insert yourself into our affairs, not Ray's, ours." Something about that made my skin crawl. Like I'd just seen the edge of something ugly and wide and rotten underneath the surface. And then it got worse. 2 weeks later, I went to the grocery store, ran into a neighbor of Ray's. Sweet, older woman named Gloria. Knows everyone. Talks to everyone. "Oh, Henry," she said, "I heard what happened. I'm so sorry." I tilted my head. "What did you hear?" "That there was some kind of, well, incident. You know, with the house. That you were trying to take over things after Ray's surgery." "Take over?" She patted my hand like I had dementia. "I know that's not like you," she said. And just like that, I realized I wasn't just being iced out. I was being smeared. They were telling people I was some kind of schemer. Like I'd rolled up in my khakis and orthopedic sneakers trying to seize their house like a cartoon villain. That was the moment I decided something. I wasn't going to let this slide. Not this time. Not after decades of being the guy who cleaned up messes, stayed out of drama, kept the peace. I wasn't going to be their scapegoat. And if they wanted to paint me as the villain, fine. But I'd be the kind of villain who tells the truth, who drags the secrets into the daylight, who makes damn sure that people finally see what's been going on in that family behind closed doors for years. They started this war. They had no idea who they were dealing with. This is the climax. Everything you've been waiting for is right here. Stay to see how I flipped the script and made them face the truth. You don't want to miss what's coming next. It's funny how quickly a reputation can be shredded when people are more interested in comfort than truth. You can spend a lifetime doing right by others, fixing their roofs, picking them up from jail, covering the electric bill just this once. And all it takes is one well-placed lie, and poof, you're toxic. But I wasn't done. They wanted me quiet, gone, erased. I had other plans. I started small, like all revolutions do. First, I wrote everything down. Everything. Every text. Every time I'd shown up to help. Every phone call where Ray had asked me for advice, support, a damn casserole. I wasn't documenting this out of paranoia. I was documenting it because when people start rewriting history, you better come armed with receipts. And then, I did something wild. I told the truth. I started with my circle. Poker buddies, church friends, my barber Fred, who's 83 and nosier than Google. I wasn't ranting. I wasn't yelling. I was calmly, clearly explaining what had happened. Ray told me he needed help, I'd say, and I came. I stayed 2 days, mowed the lawn, cleaned the kitchen. Then his wife decided I was a threat to her empire of passive aggression. Some people laughed, some gasped, all of them nodded. Because here's the thing about telling the truth when you're over 60. People listen. You're not seen as dramatic. You're seen as finally done being polite. And that's exactly what I was. I even made a damn Facebook post. Not a rant, but a story. A real one. Me, standing in my own garden, holding a rake, writing about what it feels like to be painted as a villain for giving a damn. The post got shared 147 times. Dozens of comments from other people who'd experienced the same thing. My sister blocked me after I helped her kids during the divorce. My son thinks I'm too controlling because I suggested he feed his own dog. I gave my brother a car, and he hasn't spoken to me since. The comments kept coming. I wasn't alone, and neither were they. Then came the real breaking point. A woman named Teresa reached out. She was Joanna's former co-worker. Said she'd seen my post and wanted me to know, "You're not crazy. Joanna's been like this for years. Controlling. Cold. She isolates people. Then turns them into enemies." I was stunned, but I was also vindicated. Finally, someone who wasn't related to me, who didn't owe me anything, was saying out loud what I'd been feeling in my gut. It gave me the push I needed. So I did something even bigger. I printed out my story and took it to the local community center. Pinned it to the Voices from the Neighborhood board next to flyers about lost cats and low-sodium potlucks. I titled it, "What Happens When You Help the Wrong People." That week, I got invited to speak at a senior group meeting. Not a TED Talk, just a folding chair kind of gathering at a retirement community. I showed up with my printed emails, my truth, and one goal: tell my story loud enough that no one could pretend it didn't matter. I stood in front of 24 people, most of them wearing orthopedic shoes and side-eyes that said, "Better be good." And I told them everything, not with tears, not with drama, with clarity and sarcasm. When I brought my brother a casserole, I said, I thought I was delivering love. Turns out I was smuggling in a threat to domestic control. Who knew broccoli could be so dangerous? They laughed. Oh, they laughed. But then it got quiet. Really quiet. I told them about the door slammed in my face, the group chat I was deleted from, the lie about legal papers, and I said the line that had been burning in my chest for weeks. I wasn't trying to take anything. I just didn't want him to fall down the stairs and die alone. Silence. Then a woman in the back said, "You did everything right." And someone else said, "You're not the only one." And I realized something. I wasn't at war with Ray and Joanna anymore. I was at war with the silence, with the idea that older people should just shut up, sit down, and take what's given to them. Even when what's given is unfair, cruel, or just plain wrong. And you know what? That silence? I was breaking it. One sarcastic story at a time. But here's the real twist, the one I didn't expect. After my talk, as I packed up my notes, an older man approached me. Early 70s, steel gray hair, sharp eyes. "You said your brother's name is Ray Watson?" "Yeah," I said slowly. "He works with my son. Small contracting firm, plumbing mostly." I raised an eyebrow. "You might want to know," he said. "He's been telling people a different version of your visit. Said you came to confront him about inheritance." I stared at him. "Inheritance?" I said. I hadn't even thought about my parents' house in years. We sold it long ago. There was nothing left to fight over. He nodded. "It's gotten around." That was it. The lie wasn't just a misunderstanding. It was a strategy. Ray had made me the villain because it was convenient. Because it was easier to shift blame than face his own weaknesses. I left the community center boiling. That's when I knew. This wasn't just personal. This was character assassination. And if he wanted to play dirty, fine. But I was done playing nice. This story isn't over. The final chapter is coming, and everything is about to turn upside down. Stay for part 4, where the truth hits the hardest, and justice finally speaks. You'd be surprised how fast the world spins when your name starts floating around as the punchline to someone else's cover-up. Inheritance? I hadn't even said the word in years. The last time anyone in our family talked about assets, Ray still had hair, and I was dumb enough to believe respect was a default setting. But now, apparently, I was the conniving older brother who stormed into his recovering sibling's home demanding control, with a casserole in one hand and a will in the other. It would have been funny if it hadn't worked. I was being erased. Not from documents, from memory, from reputation, from worth. And the worst part? I could feel myself believing it. That's what people never talk about. How gaslighting works best when you already doubt your value. When you're 67, retired, and live alone with your tomatoes and one arthritic cat who barely acknowledges your existence unless there's tuna involved, it's easy to wonder, maybe I really am the problem. But then I looked at the stack of letters. Handwritten, typed, folded into cards, some from strangers, others from neighbors, old friends, a high school acquaintance who'd seen my community post and wrote simply, "Me too." All of them said the same thing. "You're not crazy. You were right. I've lived this too." And just like that, I remembered something very important. People only silence the ones they fear. And if my silence made them comfortable, then my voice was exactly what they were afraid of. So I decided to talk louder. I called a lawyer. Not because I wanted to sue anyone. I didn't care about revenge. I cared about clarity. I needed someone to document what really happened, to notarize my version of the truth. I sat down, told him the whole thing, and watched him take notes like I was dictating a memoir. Then I called the local radio station. You think old men don't know how to play the game? Watch one go public. The host, Deborah, sounded skeptical at first, but I told her I wasn't there to rant. I was there to speak for every person who's been labeled difficult just for giving a damn. I came to help my brother, I said live on air, and ended up being accused of trying to steal his life. And the saddest part? He let them do it. Because it was easier than facing the truth. Dead silence. Then the lines lit up. Call after call. My daughter did the same thing. I've been ghosted since I offered to help with bills. My son says I'm toxic for wanting to see my grandkids. This wasn't about me anymore. This was bigger. And when you realize you're not alone, something inside you stands up a little taller. A few days later, I got a message. Not from Ray, From Sarah. It was short. 3 words. We need to talk. I didn't know what to expect. Another lecture? A guilt trip? A formal request to stop airing the family laundry on AM radio? But when she showed up at my door, her face told a different story. She looked tired. Not tired like no sleep tired. Tired like truth weighs on you tired. Uncle Henry, she said, I owe you an apology. I blinked. I stood. I offered her a chair. She sat. And then she told me everything. The manipulation. The fear. The way Joanna controlled the house with silence and suggestion. The way Ray deferred, avoided, disappeared into his own shadow just to keep the peace. She said you came to take the house, Sarah admitted. She was convincing. She always is. I believed her, until I heard you on the radio. She pulled a piece of paper from her bag. It was a list, printed emails, texts between her and Ray, and at the bottom, a message from Ray to her from 2 weeks ago. I know Henry was just helping. Joanna thinks he's trying to undermine her, and I can't argue with her. I'm stuck. Stuck. That's what my brother had become. Not evil, not vindictive, just spineless. A man so used to playing the background he forgot how to be honest. And yet, I still loved him. That's the damn curse of family, isn't it? You can see every flaw, every betrayal, and still feel the ache of love under it all like a scar that never fades. Will you ever speak to him again? Sarah asked. I paused. I don't know, I said. And that was the truth. This wasn't one of those stories where everyone hugs at the end and sings Kumbaya under twinkle lights. No one baked cookies. No one cried in slow motion. Life doesn't tie up with a bow. But what I did know was this. I wasn't going to shrink. Not for their comfort. Not for their control. Not for their silence. I told my story. And in doing so, I gave others permission to tell theirs. That's the win. That's the justice. That's what they can't erase. Later that week, I went back to my garden. The tomatoes had overgrown. The cat was sunbathing on my bench, like he'd paid rent. And for the first time in months, I exhaled, not a sigh of defeat, a breath of freedom. Because I had reclaimed something they tried to take. My voice, my dignity, and my damn narrative. So if you're reading this, and you're over 50, if you've ever been told you're too much, too involved, or better off quiet, let me be clear. Speak anyway. Show up anyway. Help anyway. And if they make you the villain, tell your story louder. Because the silence ends with us. Moral triumph delivered. Character arc completed. Truth spoken. System challenged.